aspirants, let us proceed ahead in this modern Indian history module. And today we are going to cover the timeline from 1910 to 1920. And we are going to study about the beginning of Gandhian era. Okay. So formally, the Gandhian era begins from 1917 onward. So that we are going to proceed ahead with. Fine. So first of all, we will cover the remaining events till 1920, whichever are there. Certain events pertain to the extremists, moderates that we are going to cover, and simultaneously we'll begin with the Gandhian period. Okay, so let us begin with this session. Now, first of all, a very important event that happened in the year 1916, that was the Lucknow Pact. Okay, now Lucknow Pact is a very important pact that was signed between two important institutions of that time. The first one was Indian National Congress, and the second important organization of the time was All India Muslim League. So this pact, first of all, you need to be very clear. It was signed between whom? It was signed between Indian National Congress and All India Muslim League. And the pact was signed at the Lucknow session of Indian National Congress in the year 1916, and hence it is called as the Lucknow Pact. All right, so it is pretty clear what is Lucknow Pact. The pact signed between Indian National Congress and All India Muslim League, where at the session of the Indian National Congress, that was a Lucknow session, which was organized in the year 1916. Okay, now what was this pact? For what purpose the pact was basically drafted or signed? Fine. Now, so this pact was signed in order to reach an scheme, or you can say an agreement on the scheme of political reforms in India. So basically, both these organizations decided that we need to demand for certain political reforms in our country. And instead of Congress presenting their demands separately and Muslim League presenting their demands separately, it would be better if both these organizations would come together and present a unified document to the British government, and hence that can even impose pressure on the British government. And hence, it was decided that instead of individually demanding for the political reforms from British, it is better together we should do it. Okay. Now, the important personalities who took an initiative in signing this Lucknow Pact were Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Muhammad Ali Jinnah was a person from the All India Muslim League, so he played a very important role. And Jinnah is known as the ambassador of Hindu Muslim unity. So please remember, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, he was referred to as the ambassador of Hindu Muslim unity because he played a crucial role in bringing these two fragments together. Okay. And the second important person was Tilak. So it was Tilak also who played a very important role in signing of this agreement. Okay. Now, who was the president of Congress during this session? So the president of the Congress during this session was Ambika Charan Mazumdar. Okay, he was a male because Ambika, the name sounds to be like a female. Ambika Charan Mazumdar. Okay, so he was the president of the Congress in this session. So you need to remember this. Okay. Now, let us try to understand what was the important characteristic features of this pact and what they demanded from the Britishers. Okay. Now, the first demand was abolition of India Council. So, you know, India Council, which was in England, a council of 15 members to support Secretary of State. Okay. So Indians earlier also, if you remember, we had studied the demands of the moderates. During that time also, moderates had demanded abolition of India Council. Why? Because unnecessarily 15 workers, 15 members were there who were working in Britain. They were paid from the salaries. Their salaries were paid from the Indian revenue, okay? And unnecessarily, and after retirement, even pension had to be paid, administrative expenses, and literally their work was of not great use. So hence it was demanded that you abolish that council. Okay. Second important thing, they talked about the composition of imperial legislative council. So when I'm saying imperial legislative council, so at the national level, we know that there was a viceroy, there was an executive council, and there was a legislative council. So they were talking about the composition of this imperial legislative council. Okay. So they said that 150 members should be there into this council. Okay, so total 150 members should be the composition of the council. Okay. And out of that 150 members, 4/5 should be elected ones. Getting it? So out of these 150 members, 4 by 5 of the members should be elected ones. Apart from that, they said that 1/3 of the seats should be reserved for the Muslim community. Okay, so that you need to remember, 1/3 of the seats to be reserved for the Muslim community, and total 150 members should be there, out of which 4/5 should be the elected ones. Okay, so official election should happen, and through the means of right to vote and participation in the elections, we should form the Imperial Legislative Council. Okay, the remaining ones. Okay, so 4/5 will be elected, so 1/5 will be nominated by the Britishers. Fine, so that was there. Now, talking about next one, they demanded for provincial autonomy. So, in provinces, they demanded that you give more and more freedom to the provincial governments to govern the provinces on their terms and conditions. Fine. The next important thing, now they demanded that 50% of the Indians should be there in the Viceroy's Executive Council. Okay. So, we have seen that slowly and gradually, Indians were allowed to be a part of Imperial Legislative Council. But what about Executive Council? In the Executive Council, for the very first time, an Indian was appointed by the Morley Minto reforms of 1909. So, if you guys know the Morley Minto reforms of 1909, according to this reforms, okay, for the first time, Indian was appointed in the Viceroy's Executive Council, and his name was, so the reforms are Morley Minto reforms. These are the reforms which gave separate electorate to Muslims. Okay, now so in this reforms only, for the very first time, an Indian was appointed to the Viceroy's Executive Council. His name was Satyendra Prasad Sinha. Okay, so Satyendra Prasad Sinha was the first Indian to be appointed to the Viceroy's Executive Council. Now, these people demanded that 50% of the members of the Viceroy's Executive Council should be Indians. Okay, and finally, it was demanded that separation of judiciary and executive. So, completely executive and judiciary should be separate. So, this pact is very crucial. Okay, so please remember all the key features of the pact. It demanded for the abolition of the India Council, demanded that there should be a composition of Imperial Legislative Council with total 150 members, out of which 4/5 should be elected, 1/3 seats to be reserved for Muslims, and most importantly, Congress accepted separate electorate for Muslims. Okay, so 1/3 of the seats will be reserved for Muslims, and here the elections will happen as per the separate electorate concept. So Congress had to compromise on its secular perspective, and they had to accept the concept of separate electorate. Okay, and Muslims accepted the concept of election. This Okay, so Muslims said that fine, the remaining seats would be elected on the neutral basis. But if we are supporting you people for the election, we want the 1/3 seats should be reserved for the Muslims. Okay. Then the next important thing, demand for the provincial autonomy. 50% of Indians should be there in the Viceroy's Executive Council, and judiciary and executive should be separate. Okay, so these were the important demands of this Lucknow Pact. Okay, and Lucknow Pact is very historic, very significant in India for important reasons. Like, for the very first thing, it is very significant for Hindu Muslim unity. Okay, and second important thing, if you remember, during this same time, we understood that Tilak and Annie were launching Home Rule League movement, right? And the movement had demanded for self-government. At the very same time, the Lucknow Pact was signed. Since both these events took place simultaneously, this in a way gave boost to the demand of self-government in India. Okay, so this is very important. Since the Home Rule League movement and the Lucknow Pact, these events occurred during the very same time, it strengthened the demand of self-government in India. Okay. Now, yet another significance of this Lucknow session is unification in Congress. Okay. So we have studied that Congress underwent a split in 1907 at the Surat session, right? But now finally it was decided that extremists would be invited back again into Congress. So this session is very significant because Congress was once again reunited, fine, and lot of pressure was created on the British government because of the Muslims League and Congress Pact, Lucknow Pact, because of the reunion of moderates and extremists, and also because simultaneously the Home Rule League movement was going on. So all this created a lot of pressure on the British government. So what is the significance of this Lucknow Pact? Okay. So the very first significance of the Lucknow Pact is that it ensured Hindu-Muslim unity. It created an atmosphere of cooperation and unity between Hindus and Muslims. Okay. So, right from 1916, 1916 is the year in which the Lucknow Pact was signed, till 1922. Hindu Muslim unity was ensured, okay, because of this pact. The second important point, which I mentioned, that reunion of moderates and extremists. Now, why? Because here, for so many years, we saw that the extremist leaders were in jail. And during that time, moderates literally did not do anything. Any big movement was not launched by them, okay? Rather, they were satisfied with the reforms which Britishers gave, like the Morley Minto reforms and all. As such, they did not do anything great. Okay, so as a result, they also understood that now it is enough. Ultimately, our goal is one: the self-government. Because even moderates had accepted self-government as the goal of Congress. Okay, so they understood that now it is better. We should come together. And Tilak had also understood one thing: adopting too much extremist tone will, in a way, be harmful for the freedom struggle. The reason is that if he will be too much aggressive, what will happen? He will be put in the jail for yet another 6 years, yet another 10 years. And if he is in jail, what he can contribute? Nothing. So even he thought that it's better to be little bit mild. And hence, the Home Rule League movement was on a milder tone, was on a moderate tone. And finally, both these units, fragments of the Congress, were reunited at this session, and hence this session is very crucial. So please remember the president of the Lucknow session, okay? Who was the president? Ambika Charan Mazumdar. Okay, so you are supposed to remember the name. Okay, fine. The next important thing, as I've mentioned, that it increased the pressure on the British. Why? Because see, everyone it's been coming together. Unification of Indians is very important thing over here, right? United demands of Indians. Congress, Muslim League together, they came and demanded for the political reforms. Extremists also joined Congress once again back. All these things put a lot of pressure on the British government, and the outcome of all these things was finally British government decided that we are going to introduce reforms in India, and that reforms came to be known as Montag-Chelmsford reforms. Montag-Chelmsford reforms. And on the basis of these reforms, Montag-Chelmsford reforms, Government of India Act 1919 was passed, which we are going to study separately. Okay. And finally, as I told you, for the very first time, even Congress had to compromise on something. So Congress accepted the separate electorate concept. Why it accepted it? Just in the interest of the unity. They wanted that ultimately. More important thing at that point of time was unity of Hindus and Muslims. Okay, so this showed the willingness of the Congress to compromise for the greater cause of national unity. So they were ready to compromise for on their principles if the cause was for the national unity. Okay, so this pact was indeed a golden chapter of unity, cooperation, and constitutional struggle in the Indian freedom movement. Okay, I hope the pact is pretty clear. Do remember all its important details, its significance can come in the mains examination. Okay, now let us solve one or two questions on this Lucknow Pact. So, Lucknow Pact 1916 is significant because Congress accepted separate electorate for Muslims. Yes, we just now understood that Congress had to compromise and accept the separate electorate concept. Congress and Muslim League jointly demanded constitutional reforms. Yes, these were political reforms, also referred to as constitutional reforms, one and the same only. Okay. It marked the reunion of moderates and extremists within Congress. Absolutely correct. So these are the important, significant aspects of the Lucknow session and the Lucknow Pact also. Okay. So one, two, three is the answer. Because in this pact, Tilak was at the forefront of the signing of this. Okay. Then consider the following statements. The Lucknow Pact strengthened Hindu-Muslim political cooperation. Absolutely correct. Muhammad Ali Jinnah was hailed as the ambassador of Hindu Muslim unity. Yes, I had mentioned in the beginning only, Jinnah came to be known as the ambassador of Hindu Muslim unity because he also took a lot of efforts in the signing of this pact. Okay. The pact rejected communal representation. No, rather, Congress had to compromise and Congress had to accept communal representation. That is the meaning of your separate electorate. Okay. So communal representation, otherwise it is known as separate electorate. Fine. I hope it is pretty clear. Fine. So what is the answer? One and two only. B is the answer. Let us proceed ahead. All right. So what was the outcome of this Lucknow Pact and all these agitations that were happening in India? The outcome was Montag Chelmsford reforms. Okay, so we saw that Lucknow Pact was demanding for certain types of political reforms in India. Fine. So that reforms were finally presented in the form of Montag Chelmsford reforms. Okay. If you guys remember in the previous session, we had studied that the outcome of the Home Rule League movement was what? August Declaration. August Declaration was issued by this same person, Edwin Montag. Edwin Montag was the Secretary of State for India. Okay, so he was the one only who issued that August Declaration as an outcome of the Home Rule League movement. And same person, and the Viceroy of India was Lord Chelmsford. Okay, I'll minimize my image so that he will be visible. Just a second. Yeah. So these two personalities, okay, Edwin Montagu, he was the Secretary of State of India, and Lord Chelmsford, he was the Viceroy of India. Both of them finally accepted the demands and they presented the document Chelmsford reforms, Montag Chelmsford reforms, okay? And on the basis of this Montag Chelmsford reform, this act was passed, Government of India Act 1919, and this act is very important. Why I'm telling you it is very important? Because many a times in prelims, MCQs have come on this act. Either it could be a part of polity or it could be a part of history, but you should be very thorough with this act, okay? You will be studying this act again in the polity as well. Here I'll be teaching from the historical perspective. Okay. So the first key feature of this act was division of subjects. Okay. So basically, the subjects of administration were divided into two parts, central subjects and provincial subjects. I hope you might have studied in polity. There are different lists in our country. There's a federal list, there is a state list, there is a concurrent list. Okay. So, what happens if a particular subject is in the central list? Or it is a central subject. So the central government will make law on it. Okay. So here the national one, the viceroy one, they will make law on the central subjects, and provincial, the different provinces, they will make laws on that provincial subject. So that is the difference between the central subject and the provincial subject. Okay, like for example, defense. Now defense is applicable to the entire nation, so hence it was a central subject. Foreign affairs, the affairs with the other countries, the relations with the other countries, that has to be dealt by the central government. Okay, ecclesiastical affairs, railways, post and telegraph, currency, customs, all these, okay, the communication affairs, okay, communication affairs, everything will be dealt with the central government, okay. And finally, the other periphery subjects like education, health, local self-government, agriculture, land revenue, they were under the provincial government, okay. So in this manner, it reduced the central control, and in a certain manner, they gave provinces some autonomy, and that was the demand of the Lucknow Pact as well. The Lucknow Pact demanded for what? It demanded for provincial autonomy. So, in some form, provincial autonomy was given by giving them the right to govern on the provincial subjects. Okay, so this is very important that you need to remember. Okay, I hope it is pretty clear. Okay, and when I talk about this ecclesiastical affairs, this is mainly with respect to the Christian missionaries and the religion. Okay. Christian missionaries and the religious aspect, basically, we can talk about the religious activities were under the central government. Okay. Yeah. That I wanted to just confirm. That's it. Let's move ahead now. So this is the first feature that you are supposed to remember. The second is introduction of diarchy in provinces. Now, what is this diarchy in provinces? Let us try to figure out this. Okay. Now, first, what did they do? First of all, they divided the subjects into two parts, central and the provincial. Now, further, the provincial subjects were divided into two parts. So, we are now just dealing about the provincial subjects only. So, in the provinces, diarchy was introduced. Now, what is this diarchy? Provincial subjects were divided into two parts, transferred subject and the reserved subject. Okay, can you see over here? Transferred subject and the reserved subject. So this division scheme came to be known as diarchy, double rule scheme. Okay, now what are these subjects and who will be administering them? Okay, so let us try to understand this. So how can you remember this? See, first of all, at the provincial level, who is the responsible personality? Governor. Okay. So in every province, there is a governor. Governor will have his executive council. Governor will have his legislative council. Okay. Now, ultimately, who will be administering both the subjects? Governor only. Fine. Now, whenever transferred subjects are to be administered, governor will administer these transfer subject along with his ministers. So in the executive council, there will be ministers, right? There will be railway minister, local self-government minister, education minister. Okay. All these ministers will be there. Fine. So governor along with the ministers, he will administer the transfer subjects and they will be answerable to legislative council. So you have to remember this with the formula TLC. What is the meaning of TLC? T for transferred, LC for legislative council. The meaning of this is that that particular subject on which law will be made by the governor along with the ministers, but they have to answer, they have to be responsible to the legislative council. Getting it? Now, the second is the reserved subject. Reserved subject, you have to remember RE. The meaning of this is that these subjects will be administered by governor and his executive council only. E means executive council without being responsible to legislature. So they are not responsible to legislature while they are making laws over reserved subjects. I hope it is pretty clear. Once again, I'll explain this. So first of all, what was the first point? In the first point, we studied that the subjects were divided into two categories, central and provincial. Fine. Now, further, they divided the provincial subjects into two, transferred and reserved. Okay. Transferred subject, ultimately, who will administer it? Governor. Reserved also governor. But we are using this formula TLC over here. What is the meaning of this? The transfer subjects will be administered by the governor with the ministers, but during this time, and these ministers are the part of executive council only. Okay. But they will be answerable, they will be responsible to legislative council. Here in the reserved subject, again they will be administered by governor and his executive council, RE. Okay, RE. But here they will not be responsible to legislature. Not responsible means that they are not answerable to legislative council. Legislature, the members of the legislative council cannot question them on the reserved subjects. I hope it is pretty clear. Okay. Now, the significant transferred subjects were, first of all, public health, education, agriculture, and local self-government. Now, this was a PYQ. The statement was given in the one of the preliminary examinations of UPSC that local self-government was classified as a transferred subject during the diarchy system. Correct or incorrect? So answer is correct. Okay, that you need to remember. Fine. So public health, education, agriculture, and local self-government. Here in the reserve, what were there? Police, justice, finances, land revenue was there. Okay. Now, this entire system was a big failure. Why? Because no one understood the logic of classifying the subjects. Because see, agriculture is kept over here, and from agriculture only land revenue was generated. So agriculture is here and land revenue is here. So people did not understand what is the logic of classifying such subjects. Okay. So hence this was pathetic. There was no coordination absolutely. And because of this, there was a mismatch in the governance. Okay. So, but you need to remember this, that the diarchy system in provinces was introduced by Government of India Act 1919. Okay. Now, bicameralism at the center. So today, at the national level, we have two houses. So that is referred to as what? Bicameralism. And in certain states of India, approximately seven states of India, they have two houses. Like Maharashtra have two houses, Vidhan Sabha, Vidhan Parishad. Then your Uttar Pradesh has, okay? So like that, Karnataka has. So like that, seven states have this two houses, upper house and the lower house, okay? Now, this division of the houses into two categories, that was done for the very first time in the Government of India Act 1919. That was at the central level. Okay. So, at the central level, they created two houses. The first house came to be known as Legislative Assembly, lower house, which is present day Lok Sabha. And the second house came to be known as Council of States, upper house, which is present day Rajya Sabha. Getting it? And this Council of State, this was meant for the princely state rulers. So we had princely states in India. So for them, for their representation, this house was created. Okay, I hope it is pretty clear. Okay, now, and majority of the members in the lower house were for the very first time elected through direct election. So please remember, for the very first time, direct election in the lower house was done for the very first time. Okay. This question often comes in the preliminary examination. Which act introduced direct elections in India for the first time? Which act introduced bicameralism in India for the first time? It was this act. Okay. I hope it is very clear what is bicameralism. So what will be the administrative setup at the national level? There will be a viceroy, there will be an executive council, plus this arrangement they have made. There is an upper house. This is the house of princely states, okay? And this is a lower house. And here in the lower house, majority of the people will be elected. And this was one of the demand of the Lucknow Pact. Okay, so that was fulfilled over here. And from these elected members, only few members were appointed to the Executive Council. Okay, now Indian representative in the Viceroy's Executive Council. Now, this is very important. Now, the demand was what? 50% of the members in the Viceroy's Executive Council should be Indians, right? That was the demand in the Lucknow Pact. Now, this was fulfilled. Out of the six members in the Viceroy's Executive Council, three were to be Indians, except the commander in chief. So, the commander in chief could not be an Indian, but remaining members could be Indians. Okay, so three were to be Indians. Okay, that you need to remember. Then, further expansion of communal representation. Now, we saw that by the Morley Minto reforms of 1909, separate electorate was given to only Muslim community. But even others began to demand for the same thing, that even we want separate electorate. So now the separate electorate, or which is also called as communal representation, was expanded. It was even given to Sikh community, Indian Christians, Anglo-Indians, and Europeans. So please remember this. This act expanded the separate electorate to accommodate Sikh, Indian Christians, Anglo-Indians, and Europeans. Okay, you need to remember this. This is very important. Okay, let us move ahead. Now, for the very first time, since this act permitted for direct elections in a country, so they introduced right to vote, but it was limited franchise. Franchise means right to vote. Okay, limited means it was given to only a small section. Only certain section of the Indian population had a right to vote, and this right was given on the basis of your property, how much property you have, whether you are paying the taxes on time or not, and your education. These three things demanded the right to vote. Okay, so this you have to remember. Next important thing, a new office was created in London. Now, here Indians demanded for the abolition of the Indian Council, but instead of that, they created a new office in London, and that came to be known as High Commissioner for India, London. Okay, so please remember this new office in London, and some of the functions of Secretary of State for India were transferred, were given to this High Commissioner for India in London. Okay, that you have to remember. Next important thing, Public Service Commission was officially established, and this was the Central Public Service Commission, which we today call it as UPSC, Union Public Service Commission. Okay, so this was established in 1926 in order to ensure fairness, impartiality in appointment, strengthening of the civil services, and recruitment to the higher services. Okay, so these were the important points of this act. Okay, so once again, let's have a look at it. So, first of all, this act, Government of India Act 1919, it came after which pact? Lucknow Pact, that you need to remember. Okay, this act is based on which reforms? Montague Chelmsford reforms. These reforms are referred to as constitutional reforms in India or political reforms in India. Okay, what is the first feature of the act? Division of subject. So the subjects of administration were divided into two parts: central and provincial. Over the central subjects, viceroy will govern and make laws. Over the provincial subject, provincial governor will make laws and govern. Okay, that you need to remember. Further, the provincial subjects were divided into two parts, which is known as the system of diarchy: transferred subjects and the reserved subjects. Transferred subjects, TLC is the formula which you need to remember. They were administered by the governor with the help of ministers being responsible to Legislative Council. What is the formula? TLC. Reserved subjects administered by the governor and responsible to the administered by the governor and the Executive Council without being responsible to the legislature. Formula is RE. Okay. But however, this failed, and please remember, local self-government, education, public health, agriculture were a part of the transferred subjects. Okay. Then bicameralism at the center. So for the very first time, two houses were created at the national level. Upper House, Council of States, for the representation of the princely state people, okay, rulers. And the next was the lower house, that was the Legislative Assembly, where the majority of the members were directly elected. Okay, and for the very first time, direct election concept was introduced in India. The next important thing, 50% of the members of the Viceroy's executive councils were to be Indian. So out of six, three were Indians except the commander in chief. And finally, communal representation was expanded to which communities? Sikh, Indian Christians, Anglo Indians, and Europeans. Please remember this, okay? Limited franchise was there, right to vote on the limited basis. Creation of new office, High Commissioner for India in London, okay? And finally, Public Service Commission was established in 1926, okay? Now we have covered everything which is related to the moderates and the extremists, okay? That is being done. So the important events. So we all know that till 1917, it is the extremist phase. So we have covered everything about the extremists. Okay, they played a very important role right from the Swadeshi movement. Okay, then we saw that they had a very important role in Home Rule League movement. Also in the Lucknow Pact, Tilak was at the forefront. Okay, so extremist phase now comes to an end, and now the Gandhian era begins. So now we are going to formally begin with the Gandhian era. Okay, so let us now talk about the Gandhian era. Some books refer it from 1919, some 1917. It's up to you, because this classification historians have given. No one has rigidly talked about this classification. Okay, so it's up to you. Not an issue. UPSC will not ask such questions because these are subjective to interpretation from person to person. Okay, fine. Now, when I talk about Gandhi, Gandhi dominated Indian freedom struggle from 1919 onwards till 1947, and this phase is oftenly called as the Gandhian era because of the decisive leadership of Mahatma Gandhi. Okay, now we all know about the uh, life of Gandhi, that he was born on 2nd of October 1969 at Porbandar in the state of Gujarat. Okay, the region represents the Kathiawar region of Gujarat. Fine. Gandhi's father was a diwan. He was a minister of the Porbandar state. So Porbandar was a princely state. In that princely state, Gandhi's father was at a very influential position. He was a diwan over there. Okay. However, after demise of Gandhi's father, their financial situation was not so good. Gandhi had his elder brother, and Gandhi was there, and even sisters were there. So elder brother was of the opinion that I'll send Gandhi to pursue higher education from England, and once he will come back, he will earn money and he will feed our family. So from that perspective, his elder brother actually took a loan, and he educated Gandhi. So Gandhi was sent to England in order to pursue a law degree. Okay. So after going to England, he went there, he pursued his law degree, and when he came back, Gandhi was extremely shy person. He could not utter a single word. Okay. When he got his first case, so when the first case was being fought, okay, when Gandhi's turn came to defend his client, Gandhi did not utter a single word. He was not able to speak only in front of the judge, and he lost the case. With this, his brother was extremely disappointed because already he had taken a lot of loan to educate Gandhi, and now Gandhi was not able to earn any money through his legal degree. So Gandhi began to do the work of typewriting under certain lawyers. So he used to assess the certain lawyers in making the legal documents and the papers, but then it was not that remunerating. Okay. Finally, a big important opportunity came in Gandhi's life. That was from South Africa. So in South Africa, there were two brothers, Abdullah brothers. So Abdullah brothers, they were doing trade in South Africa, and they had a big family business in South Africa. Okay, the Abdullah brothers. And these Abdullah brothers, I'll just minimize. Okay, I hope it's pretty. No. Okay, let it be like this only. Fine. So, Abdullah brothers were the two brothers. They were doing their business in South Africa, okay? And a very rich family was there of the Abdullah brothers. They were from Gujarat only. And it happened so, it resulted into a family dispute. So Dada Abdullah and was the elder brother, and there was a younger brother also. Okay, so there was a dispute between the elder brother and the younger brother, and they wanted someone, some legal lawyer, to come and to resolve that dispute. Okay, so Dada Abdullah contacted his friends in Gujarat. Okay, and then someone gave him the reference of Gandhi. Okay, so Gandhi is there, who has been educated from London, and he will help you because it was a family matter. You do not have to go to court and deal with it. You have to solve it mainly in the family. That was a settlement. He was aiming for a settlement. Okay, with the help of a legal person. So Dada Abdullah had a talk with Gandhi, and Gandhi was ready. Okay, so he was paid a good amount. Even the ticket to South Africa was booked by Dada Abdullah. A first class compartment ticket was booked. Okay, for Gandhi in the train to Natal. So Gandhi accepted. Okay, so from India he went via boat. At that time, boats used to be there. So all the expenses were borne by Dada Abdullah. So with that journey, he went to South Africa. From there, he had to go to his destination to Natal. Okay, so we all know the famous incident that happened at Petersmaritzburg railway station. Gandhi, in spite of having a valid ticket of the first class compartment, he was not allowed to use that compartment. And when Gandhi refused to stand, and when he refused to not listen, he was literally thrown out of the railway station. And the name of the railway station is Petersmaritzburg. Today, this railway station holds a big statue of Mahatma Gandhi. Okay, and this particular incident was a turning point in Gandhi's life. He never ever had experienced this in his life. Even when he was in Britain, he was pursuing his law study. There also there was no such discrimination. Indians were allowed to study in the institutions along with the British counterpart. They were allowed to travel together with the British. But only in South Africa, the level of hatred towards blacks and Africans was too much. Okay, and Indians. Okay, uh, Gandhi definitely understood that this is a worse form of racial discrimination. So when he went and he met Dada Abdullah, he came to know about more about this racial discrimination. He learned that Indians were uh, they had to stay in a separate lane only. So there was a dedicated area where the blacks, or you can say Asians and Africans, would stay. For the white men, that is the South Africans. For them, South Africans in the sense, so once again, I want to say South Africa, this is actually originally a country of the Africans only, black people only. But British came and colonized it. Okay, so like India was colonized, on the similar lines, they colonized even South Africa, and there they began to dominate the people, the black Africans, and they began to practice racial discrimination with the Africans and also with the other Asians. And in the even Indians had went to South Africa for the trade purpose, so this discrimination was applicable to all of them. Okay. So Gandhi learned that the areas were segregated. Okay. So there was a segregated area where Indians and the Africans would have to stay. The rules were different for. So there he learned that even the rules were very discriminatory. Like South Africans worshipped Lord Jesus Christ, they went to church, okay? South Africans, in the sense, white people I'm talking about. And even many Africans had accepted Christianity, okay? But can you imagine, even the churches were different. So the churches for the white men were separate, and the churches for the Africans, and if Asians are there, for them the churches were different. Not only this, can you imagine even the walking lanes were different? Okay, so when I was reading the autobiography of Gandhi, my experiments in with truth, okay, my experiments with truth is the autobiography of Mahatma Gandhi. He will here clearly mention that the roads, like for example, if this is the road, okay, so what they had done now, they had drawn a line. Okay. So, like, for example, this is the narrow lane and this is the narrow lane. Okay. So, basically, this lane is for Indians. Indians in the sense, now I'm talking Indians, it is basically Africans and Asian. Blacks, I will refer to it as. Okay. So, so the two corners were for the blacks, and this broad middle path was for the whites. Okay. And once it happened so, by mistakenly, Gandhi just so this is this strip, this is for and like this it was there. Okay, so this was very narrow, this was for the blacks, for the Asians and for the Africans, the narrow street, and this was for the whites. Okay, so it happened so, while walking from here, Gandhi slowly gradually turned into this lane. Immediately, the police came from back and hit him hard on his legs. And this is mentioned in his autobiography ki, to what level they had to suffer. Okay. And many taxes were imposed on them. Even if you are not marrying as per their terms and as per their laws, then your marriages were also not considered to be legal. And the kids out of their marriages were considered to be illegal kids. Okay. So, like that, derogatory terms and conditions and laws were there in South Africa, and Gandhi, when he went over there, he realized what life these people are living. So definitely he solved the case of Dada Abdullah, but then he decided, I'm not going to go back again. I am going to stay over here and I'm going to fight for these people. Gandhi even called his wife Kasturba, and she was also accompanying Gandhi in this struggle. Okay, so this is very crucial phase of Gandhi's life in South Africa. Just a second. So here in South Africa, Gandhi decided that we need to fight against this injustice, okay? And he established important organizations in South Africa. He started important newspapers. So let us try to understand this, okay? Now, the very first organization which he established in South Africa to unite the Indians against the discrimination that was prevalent in South Africa was Natal Indian Congress. Natal, it's a place in South Africa where Gandhi was staying along with the other Indian workers. So that is the place where they resided, and the name of the organization is with the name of that place. So please remember, Natal Indian Congress was the first organization established by Gandhi in 1894. in South Africa to unite Indians. Okay. Then the second important organization started by him, that was Passive Resistance Association. Passive resistance was the strategy of Gandhi in order to fight against the South Africans. Okay. And here in South Africa, Gandhi developed these unique techniques, okay, which we'll be discussing. But remember, the second organization by Gandhi in South Africa was Passive Resistance Association. Okay. Next important event was that Gandhi started a newspaper that was Indian Opinion. Here he used in this newspaper, and this was published weekly in English language, in Gujarati language, in Tamil language, and in Hindi language. And he wanted to spread the message about the discriminatory practices that were happening in South Africa, and the newspaper he ensured that even the newspaper, the certain fragments could reach Indians as well in India, so that they will also come to know what is actually happening, okay, in South Africa. Then the next important thing, he always believed that if we really want to fight against these foreigners, we have to be united. And for that, he did certain experimentations and he established certain institutions. Okay. So, what he did, so all the people, the neighbors and all together, they stayed in a settlement that is called as Phoenix settlement. Okay. So, Phoenix settlement was a big settlement of the Indians established by Gandhi, located in Durban in South Africa. And here, what they used to do, all they used to live together, they used to produce the goods together, cook food together, and basically they adopted minimum resources, simple lifestyle. Okay, so that was the first settlement started by Gandhi in South Africa, known as Phoenix settlement. So remember this. Okay, the next settlement started by Gandhi was a Tolstoy farm. Okay, so Gandhi was inspired by Leo Tolstoy, and so on when he read that book and he understood the concept of community living and simple living, he established this Tolstoy farm near Johannesburg in South Africa, and here he trained his satyagrahis. Okay, now the idea of satyagraha Gandhi developed in South Africa itself. Okay, satyagraha, satya means what? Satya, it means truth. Agraha means you are forcing someone to walk on the path of truth. Okay, so basically, Gandhi said that walking on the path of truth and insistence on justice is an ideal way to lead any struggle. Okay. According to Gandhi, Satyagraha is not the weapon of a weak. Rather, you require a lot of strength to actually walk on the path of the truth. Okay. So, see, anyone can easily walk on the path which is false. But really, to walk on the path which is on the basis of truth, it is actually difficult. Okay. And hence, Gandhi said that we do not consider that we are walking on the path of truth. We are weak. No, because actually, it is the greatest attribute of a strong person, because only a strong person can walk on the path of truth. Okay. And second important thing is ahimsa. Gandhi believed in the concept of non-violence, love, and compassion. And he always wanted that all his struggles should be non-violent only. Okay, so all these techniques he developed in South Africa. He led a big battle against the indiscrimination in South Africa, and finally he won that battle. By the time Gandhi had become a famous international figure, a famous international personality. Okay, and once he completed all his activities in South Africa, it was realized that now Indians actually needed him in India to lead Indian freedom struggle and to free themselves from the clutches of the Britishers. So finally, after completing all his work, and even Indian leaders extended their support to Gandhi for his work in South Africa. And Gokhale was the one who took the initiative and invited Gandhi to come to India. So, on the Gokhale's insistence, finally Gandhi returned back to India on 9th of January. Okay, and when he came to India in 1915, he came to India, and during that time, Gandhi declared that my mentor, my political guru, is actually Gokhale. And one more thing I would like to mention, but the methodology followed by Gandhi was purely of Tilak. Okay, so the mentor was Gokhale, but the methodology was of Tilak. Okay, now after coming to India, as I've mentioned, that Gandhi immediately did not join the Indian freedom struggle, sorry, he immediately did not join the Indian National Congress. He said that I will first tour the entire country and then I will think what to do. Okay. So finally, when he was touring the entire nation, he came across many issues of the people which he decided to resolve. So initially, he launched few small satyagrahas, which we are going to discuss now. Okay, at least I'll try to cover one or two today. The remaining I'll take it in the upcoming session. Okay. So, when I talk about the initial satyagrahas of Mahatma Gandhi, the very first initial satyagraha is the Champaran Satyagraha of the year 1917. Okay, C for Champaran, please remember C for civil disobedience. So, this Champaran Satyagraha is identical, or this is considered to be the first form of civil disobedience movement in our country. Okay, so remember this. Fine. Now, location, it's in Champaran, that is a district in Bihar. Fine. Now, what was the issue over here? Now, if you guys remember, we had studied that indigo revolt. Indigo cultivation was prevalent in Bengal, but the people of Bengal revolted, and finally, the indigo cultivation was stopped from Bengal. These planters, once the indigo cultivation was banned in Bengal, these European planters shifted the focus on Bihar, okay, and to be precise, in the Champaran area. So, what they forced, they introduced in Champaran district a system called as Teen Kathia system. Now, in the Teen Kathia system, they forced the farmers of Champaran district to go grow indigo on 3/20th part of the land. Okay, so if this is a land, so they divided the land into parts, and on the 3/20th part of the land, they were forced to grow indigo. Okay, and initially, indigo was in great demand in Britain. We have seen the reason why indigo was on great demand, because of that blue color which was used to color the denim pants. Okay, so hence there was a great demand for indigo. So what these European planters used to do, they used to force the Indian farmers to grow indigo. They used to buy that indigo at a very cheap prices from the Indian farmers, and they used to sell it in Europe at a very higher price and earn profits. Now it happened so in the beginning of the 19th century, the demand for indigo began to fall. Why? Because Germany had introduced synthetic dyes. Okay, so since the Germans had innovated synthetic dyes, synthetic colors, so now there was no demand for this indigo, and because of which now European planters began to face losses. Why? Because now even if they will get the indigo at a cheap rate from Indian farmers, there is no demand for indigo only in European market. Okay, why? Because now everyone is getting that synthetic German dyes. So hence now the planters were suffering losses. Now somehow they wanted money. What they began to do, they began to torture the farmers. They used to impose any reason, any arbitrary tax on the farmers, and they used to force the peasants to pay high rents, illegal dues, anything. Your this due is remaining. You have not paid this. You have not followed the agreement. You are at fault, so you have to pay this much. Otherwise, we'll go take you to the court. And even if they will go to the court, the people of the court were from the side of the European planters only. So all this issue was happening in the Champaran district of Bihar. Okay, so please remember the name of the system. It is the Teen Kathia system. Okay, on the 3/20th% of the land, a part of the land, Indian farmers were forced to grow indigo. Okay, now there was a local peasant from this area. His name was Rajkumar Shukla. So Rajkumar Shukla, he got the news that Gandhi has come to India and he's touring the entire nation. So he went to meet Gandhi and he invited Gandhi that you please come to Champaran, see the condition of the people of Champaran. So Gandhi came there. Gandhi was accompanied by personalities like Rajendra Prasad, Mazharul Haq, Kriplani ji, Mahadev Desai, Narhari Parekh, all these important personalities accompanied Gandhi to the Champaran area. After going to the Champaran area, Gandhi toured the entire district. Gandhi had a discussion with the peasants, and finally, Gandhi did a research and survey, and he wrote his thesis and he presented it to the British government. Okay, and he convinced the British authorities with the proof that whatever that was happening in the Champaran area was illegal, derogatory against the welfare of the farmers. Finally, the British authorities had to accept. Now, why they had to accept? The first point is that Gandhi was an international personality by the time, so he was very famous. Second thing, uh, Gandhi, whatever he did it on the basis of the pure research. He did not claim anything arbitrarily. So British had to accept it. Okay. So what was the outcome? The outcome was that Teen Kathia system was abolished from the Champaran district. Next important thing, The planters were given an order that you have to return back 25% of the compensation to the peasants. Okay. So basically, whatever illegal money ever you have taken from the peasants, at least minimum 25% you have to return it back to the peasants. Okay. And most importantly, slowly and gradually, these planters left from the Bihar, that is from the Champaran area. And the Gandhi's first Satyagraha in Champaran was quite successful. So this marked the first success of Gandhi's civil disobedience in India. Okay, so this is very important, which you need to remember. Fine, and why it is called as civil disobedience? Because Gandhi had said to the farmers that you are not going to pay any tax, any due which these planters are demanding from you. Okay. And I will see to it how they are forcing you. So Gandhi ensured that the system is abolished, and on the top of that, 25% of the compensation to be given to the peasants. Okay. So this is very important and highly successful. So that was the first victory of Gandhi in India. Now let us move towards the second victory of Gandhi. That was Ahmedabad mill strike. Okay. Ahmedabad mill strike is again very significant, and this is Gandhi's first hunger strike in India. Okay. Please remember the year. It was fought in the year 1918. Okay. Location Ahmedabad. Now here the dispute was between mill owners versus mill workers, and both were Indians. So this is not with respect to Britishers. This is within the Indians itself. Okay. So the issue was that the mill owners and mill workers two were on one on the other side. Okay. Now, actually, there was an epidemic of plague in Gujarat area, and during that epidemic, the mill owners used to give to the workers bonus in the name of plague. Okay. But now the epidemic slowly and gradually receded, so they decided we are going to stop this bonus, plague bonus to the workers. Okay. So that was the first thing. Second important thing now, however, though the plague situation had receded, but still there was inflation, and the workers were not able to cope up. Okay. So the workers were demanding, fine, if you are withdrawing our bonus, at least give us 50% wage hike. Okay. Owners were saying that we will not give you 50% wage hike, we will give you 20% wage hike. So that dispute started between mill owners and workers. Okay. So mill owners were ready to give 20% as the wage hike, and workers were demanding 50% of the wage hike. Okay. And also, the plague bonus was taken away by the mill owners. Fine. Now, initially, the workers went to Anusuya Bain Sarabhai. Anusuya Bain Sarabhai, she was the social worker of Gujarat. Okay, so she was a social worker. So mill workers or the employers went to Anusuya Bain Sarabhai. But the Mill Owners Association president was her own brother, Ambalal Sarabhai. Getting it? So Ambalal Sarabhai was the president of mill owners. Okay, mill owners leader was Ambalal Sarabhai, and Anusuya Bain Sarabhai was the representative of the workers. Okay, so in the same house only, brother and sisters are fighting. Okay, so brother is fighting for the mill owners because he is the president of Mill Owner Association, and sister is fighting for the mill workers. Okay, Anusuya Bain Sarabhai, she learnt about Gandhi, and Gandhi was also a Gujarati, so she decided ki let us invite Gandhi to deal upon this issue. So Gandhi came over here. Okay, Gandhi had a discussion with all of them. Gandhi decided he had a word with Ambalal also, but Ambalal was not ready to budge. Okay, so Gandhi said fine, let us go on the hunger strike. Okay, so Gandhi went on his first hunger strike in India, which became very glorious. And now the mill owners were actually frightened because of the ailing health of Gandhi, and they were like, if something will happen to him, so it's better now, let us come to a compromise. Okay, finally it was decided, let us go to tribunal and let the tribunal decide what happens. So when they went to tribunal said fine, and even Gandhi advised the workers. Okay, Gandhi said that let us not be too rigid. Neither 20% nor 50% will come to a settlement. And hence they decided we'll come to a middle path of 35%. And tribunal accepted this 35%. Okay. So neither 20%, neither 50%. They adopted a middle path, and 35% wage hike was finally decided. So once again, Gandhi emerged to be victorious in this Ahmedabad mill strike. Okay, so very important mill strike. You need to remember the outcome. 35% wage hike was given to the workers. Okay, and if you know Vikram Sarabhai, the father of Indian space program, he was the member of this Sarabhai family, the younger generation, son of Ambalal Sarabhai. Okay, so remember this. So Sarabhais were very famous and eminent personalities. Okay, and Anusuya Bain is very important. Later on, she formed the first traders union in India, Ahmedabad Textile Mill Union. So she played a very important role in formation of union, trade union. Okay, Ahmedabad Textile Mill Trade Union was established by Anusuya Bain Sarabhai. Okay, now let us cover the last satyagraha, Kheda Satyagraha. Okay, Kheda district, it's in Gujarat, and it was gripped with the droughts, and there was a crop failure in 1918. Okay, so you need to remember the sequence. First is Champaran, then Ahmedabad, and then Kheda. Cake, Cake. Remember. Okay, Cake. Okay, remember this sequence. Champaran, Ahmedabad, and then Kheda. Okay, location was Kheda, again Gujarat we are talking about. So here there was a drought and crop failure was there. And as per the law, okay, if in any particular year your crop yield is less than one fourth of the normal, so whatever is your normal, okay, if in this particular year, if your crop yield is less than one fourth percent of your normal, less than 25% of your normal, okay, then government will give you relief in land revenue payment. Okay, but in spite of the droughts and the crop failure, yield failed miserably. It was less than one fourth of the normal. So actually they were entitled to remission of the land revenue, but government refused to do so. So finally they decided, let's meet Gandhi. So at that time, Gandhi was accompanied by leaders like Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, who was from Gujarat, Narhari Parekh, Mohanlal Pandya, Ravi Shankar Vyas. Okay, all of them accompanied Gandhi. Gandhi gave the message of non-cooperation. So this is the first glimpse of non-cooperation of Gandhi. Gandhi said that we are not going to cooperate and we are not going to pay any land revenue. And on behalf of Gandhi, all these did the survey, took the evidences, did the assessment of the land revenue, submitted it to the British government. Sardar Patel played a very important role. Okay, he actually had a big share in this assessment and all. A report was submitted to the British government, and it was shown to them that actually the yield has fallen miserably. Farmers are not in a position to pay the land revenue. Okay, so finally, British accepted. So British suspended the tax collection. Further, the revenue rate of the land for the coming year, that was also reduced, and whatever confiscated property was taken from these farmers as they were not able to pay the land revenue, even that property was returned. Okay, so all these initial satyagrahas of Gandhi were highly successful, and hence Gandhi became a very historic figure with these three important satyagrahas. And the Gandhian phase, the beginning of the Gandhian phase was marked with great successes. Okay, all the three satyagrahas, Champaran, Ahmedabad, and Kheda, all three were important and successful. Okay, so today what have we covered? So we have covered the timeline 1910 to 1920. First of all, we studied the Lucknow Pact. So please understand what is this Lucknow Pact. Pact between Congress and Muslim League for the political reforms or the constitutional reforms. Understand the points of the pacts. President, I have mentioned the name Ambika Charan Mazumdar. Remember significance of the pact. Then what was the outcome? Montague Chelmsford reforms, which led to which act? Government of India Act 1919. This act is very important for bicameralism, for direct elections, okay, for diarchy at provinces. So all these points we have covered in detail, refer this, okay. Then we began with the Gandhian era. So we understood about Gandhi's journey in South Africa, and then he came to India. And after coming to India, Gandhi launched initial satyagrahas. Champaran we have covered, Ahmedabad we have covered, Kheda we have covered, okay. Please revise all these things I'm going to discuss the MCQs pertaining to this in the upcoming session. And formally, we are going to now continue with the Gandhian era. Okay. So now whatever sessions will be there, it will be from the perspective of Gandhian era. In the upcoming session, we are going to begin with the non-cooperation movement. Okay. That's it for the day. Thank you so much. We'll be meeting in the coming session with the next part of the Gandhian era. Okay. Thank you. We'll end the session over here.